Over the last couple of weeks, we've been rolling out with our new home renovation series on this channel. And with it, we've been producing a special episode of our podcast Tuxedo Time that we're calling the After Show Edition. So in today's video, we're going to talk about how we plan our podcast, but not just our podcast, pretty much all of our videos using my favorite app ever. And massive shout out to Milanote for sponsoring today's video. We absolutely love this app because it's a fantastic way to keep all of your content and video scripts organized, but it's also super visual, which is really important for me. I can't do just text. I need like graphics and images and icons, and Milanote is just filled with that. We've got boards, we've got columns, we've got color schemes and custom icons. It's really up my alley when it comes to visual design, and it's also really handy when it comes to planning tons of different types of content like videos, scripts, storyboards, mood boards, and podcasts. So we have a podcast, which is an extension of this YouTube channel called Tuxedo Time, and it's basically an audio and video show where we have unfiltered, candid discussions about life, video production, and being a creator. And on top of that, when we do these large video projects on our channel, like the Home Reno series or our helicopter series Heading East, we like to do a special edition of the podcast that we call the After Show Edition, where we basically dedicate one episode to deep diving on the behind the scenes of one of those big projects that we're working on, show some images, talk about the video production, and then answer questions that come through on this channel. With our podcast, our episodes are loosely based around a topic. We just kind of decide what it is and we have discussion. But for the after show, there's a significant amount more pre-production involved because we want to hit on specific points, answer specific questions, and talk about really specific behind the scenes things that are related to these videos that we're making. So we take a lot of time to plan out those episodes. So I'm going to show you how I do that today using Milanote. Everyone should be doing this. Everyone should be planning out their content before they even pick up the camera. Not only does it save you a ton of time in post-production because you know exactly what your video is going to be about, it takes a lot less time in shooting as well because you have an outline, you know exactly what the point is of your video, and you can hit those points right away without rambling. But it also gives you an opportunity to add more value to your audience because you've thought about everything ahead of time. During editing the Home Reno series, we were editing footage that we had shot 3 and 5 years ago, back before we even planned our videos out. And it was a very much pull the story together in the edit type moment, whereas now we plan out our videos and shoot for the plan. We have a story and a title and a thumbnail before we even start filming. Back then, we were just shooting everything, just hoping to pull it together in the edit, which makes it a lot more challenging. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of my podcast board, show you kind of how I have it set up, and then we're going to build one from scratch. This is my Tuxedo Time podcast Milanote board, and there's a ton of subboards within that, and I basically have everything color-coded to keep everything organized. So everything that's in the green category are completed episodes. These are episodes that we've recorded and have already published. Gray category is what's in the queue. So anything that's tagged gray is a podcast topic that we are going to be recording that we've kind of planned out. We've decided what the topic is going to be and what that special segment is going to be, whether it's a That's Friggin' Deadly, where we talk about something that we're really into, or if it's a Q&A segment. We include these little segments in our podcast just to kind of have a little bit of fun and to kind of break up the talking. The boards here that are in black are the After Show Edition, which we talked about. I just like to color code everything so I can have an easy visual reference when I open up the board. And then over here, all of these orange boards, these are just kind of like ideas, maybe a comment that somebody left on our channel or on our podcast of a topic suggestion, but they have not been developed yet. And then I have a board here with all of our Tuxedo Time specific Instagram template posts. And then I also keep all of our jingles here as well. And I've also included a list of our segment ideas so I don't forget. I talked to you guys about our podcast Tuxedo Time where we have these unfiltered discussions. The after show edition of the podcast is a more produced episode. There's a lot more pre-production involved, a lot more planning involved. And these are specific shows where we deep dive on the behind the scenes of a large video project that we've done or a series on our main channel. So Milanote now has a bunch of podcast templates that you can use to plan your podcast, whether you're building a story or just kind of an outline. So I'm going to show you kind of how I do mine, and then we're going to set one up from scratch. So as you can see, I have a number of columns here that are all titled depending on what information is going in what. So on the left here, I have an about the episode column. Right now, there's a link to the after show for Heading East in here just for reference. Below that, I have the intro track for the home reno series. And then underneath that, we have the after show, episode 1, house hunting. That's what we're going to be discussing in this specific episode. And then a little bit of a description of what this episode is going to be about. So here it says share stories that weren't shown in the video and answer viewer questions about the episode. So that gives me a clear direction on what we should be doing in this specific episode. The next one over, we have talking points. So we do our introduction, we give a brief overview, a couple of notes on things that we want to talk about, like how editing with the knowledge that we have now, but using footage that we shot with knowledge we had 5 years ago was really challenging. So we're going to talk about that. And this is just an opportunity to have a couple of brief notes that guide and direct your episode, but you don't have to script out everything here. We also included some side stories, like about the first house in the first episode, how that was actually almost the house that we were going to buy. And then below, I just have a little section for questions that come through on the main video. Also have a column here with reference images. So these are going to be images that will prompt something that we're going to talk about in the after show edition, or images that are going to go in the show notes section of our website. The next one here is the distribution column. So we kind of have a duration period that we want to hit. Normally for a normal episode, we try to hit 30-45 minutes. After show, we're okay with going an hour plus. And then there's a little section here for the episode description / show notes. So this is where I'm going to type out the paragraph or 2 paragraphs that will go in the about section for the podcast. So that will go in the podcast episode description on YouTube, in the description on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and that will also go in the description of the show notes. Below that, I have a little checklist. So these are things that I'm going to include in the show notes. So while I'm editing the episode of the podcast, I'll have this browser pulled up and I'll just start typing in as we talk about certain things, embed the episode, reference this video, talk about this, link this photo, link that product. So that's where all of that goes. And that just keeps everything in one spot. Online, I can access it anywhere from any computer, which is super handy if you are editing on one computer and then building out your show notes on another. You can access Milanote anywhere you have internet. And then over here on the right side, I have just social media assets, anything that I'm going to use to advertise that podcast once it goes up. I kind of throw it here for reference, especially with the after show because it is a slightly different format and design. It's nice to have that referenced here. So in a couple months time when we do this again, I don't forget what those things look like. Now I'm going to show you guys how you can set up your own board. The opportunities are really endless here. Like I said, I'm showing you how to set up a podcast in Milanote. You can literally set up your video outline, a mood board, a road trip itinerary, like anything. That's why I love this app specifically. I've been using it for like 3 years because it's just so good, so visual for every facet of being a creator. So Milanote just added a bunch of different podcast templates. As you click on these different templates, Milanote will show you kind of how you can use it, an example board, which is really helpful if you're new to planning your content to see how they suggest you use the boards. You can use one of these templates as a starting point, delete, add things, or you can just start a board from scratch. I usually like to use one of their templates to start with because I just find it's a great starting point. We're going to use podcast episode plan. I'm going to click on that and just say use template. So it clears all of the examples, but it kind of gives you a little bit of a framework so you can kind of drag and drop. You can go ahead and, delete stuff from this, add things, subtract things, change the colors. I highly encourage you to design the boards to match your project. And I'm just going to delete a couple of these things. There's a ton of options over here on the left-hand side of things that you can add. So notes, links, to-dos, lines, boards, columns. So boards are kind of like your folders. These are columns, so you can add boards and notes and to-do lists to your columns to keep things organized. I'm just going to take this note and just drag it over here, and then I can start typing. Let's say talking points, house hunting, why we moved. So great spot to add a couple of talking points. Again, with podcasts, they're kind of, unscripted. We like to say we're unfiltered, candid discussions. So notes, and then talk on those notes freely. So let's add in our jingle. You can basically just drag and drop that there. I don't know if you can hear it. Welcome back to another episode of Tuxedo Time, where we're Tuxedos. Moving on. So they even give you a little spot here for your episode description and show notes, which I love. With the show notes, I'll make a to-do list, which will just have a list of things, links and images that I need to include in the show notes, but also things that we've talked about. So then later, once I'm done editing the episode, then I can build that 1 or 2 paragraph description that will go everywhere that kind of says what the episode is going to be about. So again, this is a great starting point so you can start planning out your podcast, but also you don't just have to plan your podcast. You can plan your videos using this as well. Write your scripts in here, build out your mood boards. So here are a couple of features that I love about Milanote. The first one, I love to add the show notes to the app. Having those notes there is super key. Second thing is the Milanote clipper. So a lot of times if I'm building a mood board, I can just clip things from the internet, Pinterest, and just toss it directly into my board. Checklists are one of my favorite things. I'm a big checklist user, especially when it comes to launching and releasing these big series. There's kind of a lot that goes into that. It's not just posting the video, but then we have Instagram stories, Reels, in-feed posts. What are the captions that are going to go on Twitter? What's in the description box? What are the extra posts that go along with that? So having basically a launch day checklist is super helpful. The columns are also one of my favorite features here because you can kind of add these sections to keep everything organized and then put boards and notes and to-do lists and links within those things. So it just keeps everything nice and visual, nice and organized. And working with teams is also really great with Milanote too. You can work with a team. If somebody has Milanote, you can share a board, you can comment, you can react, but you can also share a board with somebody who does not have Milanote as well. And with that being said, you can actually use Milanote's free account and start playing around with it to see if it works within your workflow. And the last thing I love is the fact that I can add audio files and video files right in here when we're doing these series and we have a lot of these social assets that we're gonna be posting. I like to pop everything into a board to keep things organized. So I know that on Sunday when the episode goes live, this is the Instagram story, this is the trailer video that's gonna be going on Instagram, and the dates in which those things are getting posted. We kind of talked about how to plan a podcast using Milanote, but you can really use this for any project that you're working on, creative or not. We're doing a big road trip coming up. I've been planning my entire trip itinerary, everything in there, even my shot list, storyboards, everything. It's really a one-stop visual shop for creatives to be able to plan out their videos and social media assets and posts without having to have a million different apps. It's kind of like an all-in-one type thing. Thank you, Milanote, so much for sponsoring today's video. If you guys want to check out the app, the link is in the description box. You can sign up for free and give it a shot. I have been using this for like 3+ years, and I have not looked back once. It's this, notes, iCal, and that's all I need to stay productive when it comes to making videos, Instagram posts, blog posts, and the podcast. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Home Reno series. Link up here. If you're watching the Home Reno series, you may notice that today's video is not the bathroom makeover, and that is because our shower glass came to get installed 2 weeks ago, and it was the wrong size. So there's a little bit of a delay with that, so we're going to throw in a couple of DVD extras while we wait for that glass to get recut and reinstalled, and hopefully it won't be 6 weeks. Organized little mood board.